So this is the last day of notes for Chapter 8. So this is day 8 notes. It's all about parallel and perpendicular lines. So some vocab to get us going. Two lines are parallel if they have the same slope but different y-intercepts, okay? So parallel lines are two lines that never intersect. They go on and on and on forever. I always think of parallel lines as like the sides of a train track. They're always the same distance apart. They're always running right along next to each other. That happens when they rise and run at the same rate. So the slope has to be the same. Okay? Two lines are perpendicular if their slopes are opposite reciprocals. Perpendicular lines are lines that meet to form a right angle. Okay? And that happens when you switch the sign of the slope and you flip the fraction of the slope. All right, so parallel, they ride right alongside each other. Perpendicular, they cross to make a right angle. A right angle is like that perfect angle that you see them all over the place, 90 degrees. And we get that in algebra by doing opposite reciprocal slopes. So change the sign, flip it. So here's our first example for today. This says find the slope of the line parallel and perpendicular to the given equation. So I'm going to have two answers, parallel slope and I'll just write perp for perpendicular. So what does m equal for a line parallel to this line? Well, first, let's find this line's m. What's the m here? The slope. 2/3. Parallel lines have the exact same slope. So if the slope was 2/3, it's still 2/3. Perpendicular. Flip it.
2/3.
Flip it.
3/2. Or 3/2.
Yeah. Flip it and then change the sign. So you were changing the sign, you were flipping it. Put your answers together. -3/2. Opposite reciprocal. Opposite means change the sign. Reciprocal means flip it. What are your questions?
I thought it was just as easy as changing the sign.
Nope. Do I know the slope of this line? No. You can only grab the slope from the line when it's in slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. That's why number 1, we knew the slope right away. Y was already by itself. Here, y is not by itself. So what do I need to do first? Yes, ma'am. Very good. Add 4x to both sides. So we get y equals 4x plus 3. Do I know the slope now? What is it?
4.
It is 4. You might want to think of it as 4/1 so that you have a fraction to actually flip. So a line parallel to this line would have what slope?
1/4.
Parallel.
4.
4. Parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular line would be what? -1/4. Good. So parallel is exactly the same. Perpendicular, you flip it, you change the sign. All right, here's part C. Yes, ma'am?
Is it okay for when it's a whole number and we put the parallel thing as if we do like 4/1?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
All right, do I know the slope?
No.
No. Can I find the slope?
Yes.
Yeah. What do I do?
Subtract.
Yep, subtract x from both sides. We end up with 7y equals negative x minus 7. Then what? Divide everything by that 7. So we know there's a negative 1 with that x, right? So I just made the fraction negative 1/7 and then the x on the outside. All right, what is my current slope? Slope of this line, negative 1/7. So a line parallel would have that same slope, negative 1/7. Perpendicular would have what slope? Positive 7. You just flip it. When there's a 1 on the bottom, you don't even need the fraction. Questions? All right, here's example 2. Are these lines parallel, perpendicular, or neither? How can I tell? You have to do the stuff first. That's very insightful. Yeah, you got to get in slope-intercept form first so we can find the slopes. How do I get the first one in slope-intercept form? Subtract the 5x from both sides. Good. So we have negative 3y equals negative 5x plus 8. Then what? Yep, divide everything by negative 3. So we have y equals negative 5 over negative 3 is just positive 5 over positive 3. And then for our b, we also have a fraction. 8 divided by negative 3 is negative 8/3. So minus 8/3. All right. I'll give you a second to catch up. Sorry, I get on a roll on some of these. All right, next one. What should I do? Yeah. Well, okay. Yep, if you subtract 15 from both sides, you have 5x minus 15 equals equals 3y. You can see this is all kind of flip-flopped. That's fine. When something's equal, you can just rewrite it when you get to that step. So let's get the y by itself, and then we'll write it in the front. So then divide by 3. So you have 5/3 x minus 5 equals y, which is y equals, and then you can just write it again. 5 over 3x minus 5. What's the slope back here? 5/3. So 5/3 and 5/3. Yeah, these lines will be parallel. They have the same slope. That was a lot of work for a one-word answer. You are correct. All right, here's part B. So 2x plus 3y equals 6, and 2y equals 3x plus 8. I want to decide parallel, perpendicular, neither. What should I do first? Subtract the 2x from both sides. So we have 3y equals negative 2x plus 6. Then what? Divide everything by 3. So y equals negative 2/3 x plus 2. What's my slope? Negative 2/3. Good.
So on these, the y-intercept doesn't matter.
Right, the y-intercept is unimportant on these. The main concern for parallel perpendicular lines is the slope. What's up?
Oh, wait, we haven't done the other part, sorry.
Would you like to start the other part?
Sure. First we well, it's already in the slope intercept form, so you just divide both sides by 3. It's 2y. Y is already a line.
Divide both sides by what?
2.
2, very good. What's the slope of this line? 3/2. What kind of lines am I looking at? Perpendicular lines. If you take one, flip it, change the sign, you'll get the other one. That means perpendicular. Opposite reciprocals. Questions? All right, here's number letter C. Are the lines parallel, perpendicular, neither? First one's good to go. Trying to give everyone a second to write it down. You're rushing me. Usually I'm rushing you guys. But yes, you are correct. The slope for the first one is -2/3. We've got a lot to do in the back, though. What should I do? Subtract the 8 first. Good. So 2x minus 8 equals 3y. Divide by 3. So 2/3 x minus 8/3 equals y. Rewrite it with y in the front. So y equals 2/3 x minus 8/3. Then what? So m equals 2/3. Parallel, perpendicular, neither. Neither. Why?
Because it's one's -2/3 and the other's 2/3.
Right. They're not the same. They're opposites, right? But are they opposite reciprocals?
No.
So they're not alike enough to be parallel, and they're not quite perpendicular. You got to flip one of them. So this is a neither. All right, here's D. Oh, this is a good one. Yes.
When baby, what's it called? Baby parallel. Because of 0, they both slope of 0.
They do not both have a slope of 0.
Perpendicular.
Let's see. So the slope of a y equals line is 0. You could think of this as y equals 0x plus 3, right? Mathematically, that's the exact same thing. The slope here is 0. It's a horizontal line. What's the slope of an x equals line? Undefined. That's a straight up and down line. Give me a random number. 3. Okay. So if I thought of this slope up here as 0/3, if you would flip that, what would you get? 3/0. Can you divide by 0? No. So these two are kind of like opposite reciprocals, right? I mean, you could technically throw a negative in either one of them and you don't change anything. Okay? So when you think of 0 as a fraction and you flip it, you do get undefined. Okay? So these are kind of, it's not really a trick, but it's an interesting way to think of perpendicular lines. Or if you think about the graphs, a y equals looks like this, and x equals looks like this. That's a right angle right there, right? That's kind of more the geometry approach. You'll get there next year, but A couple different ways to think about this one. Any questions?
Wait, for this, if it's undefined, is the 0 over, on top, or on the bottom?
On the bottom. 0's on top when it's 0, 0's on the bottom when it's undefined. All right, what did we learn about today?
Perpendicular and parallel lines.
Very good. Parallel and perpendicular lines. All right, we just finished chapter 8. Woo!